What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another meta update. My name is Joshua Joshi Howard, and today we're going to be going through the list that we saw over this last weekend between January 31st and February 1st, and all that other good stuff. I was kind of crashing out putting this together last night, and we're going to just get through it together. Hopefully, it's funny, but we're going to have a good time as we're going through this one. Um, we've been seeing a lot. There was a lot of people playing at teams, in particular the Winter ITT over in the UK. Had I think it was 16 teams players that I added. There was another decent sized event over in I think it was Thailand, Southeast Asia for sure. And then we had just a lot of good people, like a lot of known players were having good weekends this last weekend. So let's go ahead and get into it. To start off with, Guard remains very, very good. We had 123 wins, 100 losses, and 2 draws for an overall singles win rate of 55.1%. Our average ELO 1578, and then our median was 1514. 44 out of 45 singles players were playing Grizzled this weekend, and I don't know what the teams was overall, but I'm assuming it was pretty similar. Grizzled is up to a 54.6% win rate across the patch or the data slate so far. So we're doing very, very good. We'll get to the crash out, but a big part of it was there were 16 players at the Winter ITT who were basically on the same list. Very, very similar lists overall. And for anybody who's noting, if you were watching and you haven't seen any of these before, and you went to a Teams event and you did well, but you're not in this video, remember I only look at the people who are 1600 ELO or above. Hope you did well. Glad you did well. Hopefully you can keep doing it. But go play those singles events and you'll make your way into these for the team stuff. Win rates of basically everything is way higher. Basically every data sheet, except for the ones that are really just bad, have been getting played at least a little bit between over the course of this data slate. Even some of the less popular Laban Russes are starting to pop up every now and then. You can kind of play whatever you want. Also, Indirect seems to be really popular in Spanish-speaking countries. Not sure what exactly is causing that. Unfortunately, the Spanish-speaking community is not as present in the English-speaking community as much. Anyway, other big thing I wanted to talk about, we've been seeing a really interesting shift in I'll call it the demographics of the Guard community so far. And what we were seeing before was that 80% of games were being played by people under 1600 for Guard players. And then only 20% of games were being played by people above 1600. Whereas on this slate, it's about 2/3, so like 66-ish percent of games are being played by people under 1600. So that's most people. And then the top 5% are representing about a third of the games being played. So we're seeing a lot of people coming back to the faction. We're seeing a lot of people swapping over to the faction right now. So it's been really interesting. So just kind of keep that in mind. That's part of the reason, right? The win rate is definitely partly because we are better, but it's also a big part of it is better players are hopping over. One of the interesting things, and probably the most relevant part here, is that the top player win rate hasn't changed that much. It's gone up like a couple of percent, but it's like 1.5% ish. But the win rate of the other 95% is gone up about 5%, which is a pretty significant jump. And then the other thing is the people who are getting no wins, like we have cut that number in half for the people who are getting no wins. The people who are getting one or fewer wins is down about a quarter. So we're getting a lot more people who are going 0-5, 1-4 are starting to go 1-4, 2-3. So a lot of people are getting that extra win, which has been helping out our win rate quite a bit. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into it. As always, we have a bunch of different, not always, but as we have shifted, and in order to help myself switch over, we are going to be breaking things down into categories again. Our first category, 2 Dorns, and then 2 or more Vanquishers, and then no Bullgryn, and this will come up a little bit later. This is gun lists. You generally see you're going to be running 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, or Lord Solar and 2 Rogaldorn Battle Tanks, or maybe a Rogaldorn Commander and 1 Rogaldorn Battle Tank and 2 Vanquishers, some combination like that. And then you will either decide, do you want to go down the Khazarkin route, or you'll take 2 or 3 into Khazarkin, probably in transports, or do you want to go down the horse route, where you take three, four, 5 units of horses, oftentimes in 5 mans, and then you just use them as OC missiles and force your opponent to come play the game where your Dorns can shoot them. Very standard stuff. Let's go ahead and get into it. First one we have Jerome Connolly, played at Asia teams. I know, despite being a British player, going all the way out to Southeast Asia to compete in the Asia teams. It was a 6-man teams event. That was won by, I believe it was won by StatCheck, so congratulations to StatCheck. And Jerome has had a lot of success on this data slate. He's been doing quite well recently. He's playing a Cadian Command Squad, 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, a 20-man Cadian Brick, 1 unit of 10 Cadians, 2 Toroxes, 3 units of 5, or 2 units of 5 Rough Riders, 1 unit of 5 Death Riders, 3 units of Kazarkin, 2 Luminous Vanquishers, and a Rogaldorn Battle Tank. So I know this was played on Games Workshop terrain. So having a lot of guns, the 3 Rogaldorns, is something that I have played on this kind of board before. It's kind of reminiscent of things that we've seen like Scott Horace play as well, where you just take guns and you take some fast Kazarkin and Toroxes and you just go kill people. Definitely very successful historically, but getting a 20 into Blood Angels, a 19 into Blood Angels, a 14 into Votant, a 6 into Tau, and a 16 into Ultras. I'm going to guess the Tau he ended up playing up against Montcau Tau, probably went second and lost more than you really can in those kind of matchups, which is how that goes. If you're going to live by having 3 Dorns and 2 Vanquishers, you're going to die by having 3 Dorns and 2 Vanquishers when your opponent is sometimes able to kill them. So Drum going 4-1 there. Next, going over to the Winter ITT over in the UK, we have Danny Evison, who did not actually have a great weekend, despite being an 1804 player. I don't really think I've seen Danny's name pop up as a guard player in the past. So in general, you don't generally see, one of the big things that we've been seeing is that people who are not on their main faction tend to do worse, and guard is harder to pick up than a lot of people think. And Danny was bringing kind of an odd list to this. He had a Cadian Command Squad, Lord Solar, 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, an Engine Seer, 1 unit of 10 Cadians, 3 units of 5 Rough Riders, 3 units of Ogryn, 1 Armored Sentinel, which is not something that you see do very well very often, 2 Hellhounds, a Luminous Exterminator, 2 Luminous Vanquishers. He went 2-18 into Space Wolves, 9-11 into Custodes, 18-2 into Sisters, 16-4 into Ultramarines, and a 7-13 into Ultramarines. So overall, I don't really like the look of this list. In general, there might be specific tech that you can do with it on UKTC terrain that I would not be as familiar with, but a lot of top British players are not really in favor of Vanquishers because you don't really have access to those like really long shooting lanes that Games Workshop terrain makes the Vanquishers really good on. And then the double Hellhound feels odd. This doesn't feel like the detachment to be playing that in. And then the 3 Ogryn with no transports are just really, really slow. Yes, there's 60 points for a toughness 6, 3 wounds each, but they just don't do a ton, and there's no way to order them without the Commissar in this list. So it feels like a lot of weird pieces that you have to know how to play pretty well. And ultimately, it didn't do great in the first couple of rounds, right? Getting a 2 into Space Wolves, this is not a matchup where we have historically struggled. So seeing the fact that we are getting blown out by that does mean that Danny didn't do quite as well. But he's an 1804 player, therefore makes it in anyway. Next, we're going to go over to, I believe this is in Germany, the 3rd Schwarzwald GT. Schwarzwald? Is that Black World? I'm not sure what Wald is. Maybe Forest. Black Forest? Schwarzwald? Anyway, Pascal Haberstroh getting 1st overall, going 6-0 with Grizzled Company. Playing a Cadian Castellan, a Cadian Command Squad, Gaunt's Ghost, an Ogryn Bodyguard, 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, a 20 brick of Cadians, 2 units of 10 Catachan, 2 Chimeras, 2 units of 5 Rough Riders, 2 units of Catachan Mortars, 2 units of Kazarkin, and 2 units of Vanquishers. So mixing up a little bit here, of course, by having the 2 units of Catachan Mortars instead of more horses. But you also have the Catachan instead of horses, so you still have like lots of things to play the midboard with. I'm also a big fan of the Cadian Castellan brick in this archetype because it just gives you that one extra piece where sometimes you can put it in reserve, sometimes you can start it on the board. It's a lot harder to remove than your opponent thinks. And of course, tip of the day, as always, play Catachan Mortars, not Cadian Mortars, because if you don't have a use for the mortars, say you're playing up against like Chaos Knights or something and it's just all War Dogs, the Catachan Mortars will do like 1 damage maybe to a War Dog. So you just throw them forward. They become bad Catachan. You can't do that with Cadians. They just are not good in the matchup. So anyway, Pascal going 70-45 into Tyranids, getting a win into CSM, Ultramarines, Tyranids, Ultramarines again, and then Demons at the very end. 6-0. I like this list a lot. Congratulations for taking down the Schwarzwald GT. Next, the Torchlight Iron Men. We're going to be jumping over to Canada here with Nick Giagiello going a 4-1. Very strong player. Historically has played a lot of tanks. Really likes the tank pile, but for this Iron Man, going to be shifting over to Grizzle Company, still on the Dorns and Vanquishers, and he's a big fan of horses. This is also the first time we've seen him play Kazarkin in like a year. He's definitely been on just tanks and horses and a couple other fast things. Cadian Command Squad, 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, Ursula Creed, 10 Cadians, 2 Chimeras, 3 units of 5 Rough Riders, 1 unit of 5 Death Riders, 3 units of Kazarkin, 5 Krieg Engineers, and then 3 Leonis Vanquishers. So this was another first round loss into Space Wolves. Again, so that is 6-25. That's a 5-15 into Space Wolves, which is kind of surprising to me coming out. But then a big win into Votann, Tyranids, Drukhari, and into Tau. So just kind of clobbering his way through the lower bracket here is Nick. Again, a very regular player to see at these top tables. Not really surprised. This list is very Nick Giagiello coded. You've got all the Rough Riders, you got the 2 Dorns, you got the 3 Vanquishers. Generally, he's played like Hellhounds and Exterminators to fill out the list before, but this time, I don't know. I think he just wanted to try something different. Anyway, going 4-1. Congrats to Nick. We'll see you again. Next, we have a really big surprise. Jonathan Spear at Fun and Games January. Fun thing about Jonathan, he is an unranked player. I've never seen this name before, so he's never gone. This has to be his first GT. And in his round 5, in his final table, he beat Joshua Campbell, an 1800 rated Necrons player. So, I mean, if this is actually a new player at their first GT, incredibly impressive stuff. If it's someone playing under a pseudonym, I would not be terribly surprised, but still, really cool stuff from Jonathan Spear. He's playing Acadian Command Squad, Gaunt's Ghost, 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, Ursula Creed, 10 Cadians, 10 Krieg, 10 Krieg, Chimera, 10 Rough Riders, 2 units of Kazarkin, 3 Luminous Vanquishers, and a Scout Sentinel. Not a whole lot more to say about this. It's a little bit more damaging than some of the other lists. You don't have like the same quantity of trash, and the trash is a little bit slower because it is 2 units of 10 Krieg instead of 2 units of 10 Catachan, which you will see a lot of as we start going later into this video. But you have the Scout Sentinel, you have the 2 units of 10 Krieg, you have the Kazarkin and Chimeras, and the 10 Rough Riders. The fact that it's a bit more elite as opposed to a bit more MSU, as we tend to see, is a little bit surprising, but clearly good enough. Getting a win into Dark Angels, a draw into Tyranids, before beating Blood Angels, Sisters, and Necron. So congratulations to Jonathan Spear on the GT win, especially for your first foray at the GT level. Okay, next we are going to start getting into the crash out part of the video. We're going to be taking a look at a lot of lists from the Winter ITT. Again, this was played on UKTC terrain over in the UK. Lots and lots and lots and lots of people were on the same list. So we'll go ahead and get right into it. Oh, talking about the archetype a bit. Again, this mostly relies on you have 2 units of 12 Bullgryn. Partly on UKTC, one of the reasons why it's so strong is you generally have like those 2 giant like 8-inch by 8-inch pieces that are just like in the middle of the board. And if you put Bullgryn in there, what the heck is your opponent supposed to do about it? A lot of, especially Marines, just can't do anything. And the charge between those 2 buildings is not actually very far. So you can create a lot of pressure that way. If you put something on the middle objective, like Catachan or Krieg or something, to go stand there and your opponent has to come out to deal with it, then you go like, okay, well now I have Bullgryn. You've killed my Catachan. Cool, whatever. My Bullgryn will kill whatever kind of Marine just did that. And then your opponent goes, wait, now I have to kill Bullgryn? That's a massive problem. I don't want to have to do that. So really good on UKTC terrain, very good on WTC terrain. Still playable on Games Workshop terrain, but because there tends to be more long-range gun on GW terrain, it's not quite as powerful, but still very powerful as an archetype overall. Anyway, We're going to start off at the Winter ITT with Kevin Davies, a player whose name I haven't seen pop up before, so maybe not historically a guard player, but playing guard for this event. Keating Command Squad, Commissar with Abhuman Detail, Gaunt's Ghost, 1 Scion Command Squad, an Ogren Bodyguard, 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, 20 Cadians. So a little bit interesting there because I'm assuming it's the Commissar, the Keating Command Squad, the Ogren Bodyguard, and the 20 Cadians. And I don't love this arrangement of leaders, but it's okay, right? I generally prefer like an Ursula Creed and no bodyguard or no Ogren bodyguard or a Castellan and yes, an Ogren bodyguard. The Commissar just doesn't really contribute much to the unit, but it is still just like a lot of dudes that you can bring out later in the game. Um, 2 Chimeras, 2 into 6 Bullgryn, 1 Field Ordnance Battery. So this makes your matchup into like Drukhari better. It makes your matchup into some Marines a little bit better. Like if you're playing into like Rage Curse Onslaught, it's slightly better. But in general, I'm not a big fan of the Field Ordnance Battery. So one of the things, and again, I know there are other guard content creators who say you should bring indirect, and the reason being, the indirect that you're bringing is you're bringing it because you want to do damage to things. And the claim was that on Games Workshop terrain, you don't need that indirect because it's more open, and that's not why at all. Like that is such a secondary consideration. You also don't see a ton of indirect being brought on WTC, which is more dense than UKTC. The reason why you don't bring indirect is because what you can do is by moving your opponent's pieces around, by placing units in the open. Like let's say you place like 10 Catachan on the middle objective, right? And your opponent's playing a melee army. That melee player now needs to bring out a melee piece, which is going to be in the open, right? And because they're in the open, we can now shoot them. And so you can not only set up yourself to, when you go like kill this unit back, you can pre-measure where they're going to get to, or you can put guys in the way so they can't go over you. And that's the big reason why. It's not that the indirect isn't necessary for the damage on in the game. It's not necessary because it doesn't contribute to the plan of we're going to put a thing in the open, you're going to come kill it, and then we're going to kill you. And then we're going to put another thing in the open, you're going to kill it, and then we're going to kill you again. Right? It just doesn't contribute to that game plan, whereas a Field Ordnance Battery makes a couple of small matchups a little bit better. Those are matchups that we tend to be winning anyway. We tend to be really good into Marines. So why are we teching for it is basically the main thing. We're generally pretty good into Eldar. We don't really need to tech into it, but you can make Eldar very sad by taking 3 units of mortars. But that's like a teams thing. It's generally not like a singles thing. You don't really need to take indirect. Anyway, Kevin, 3 into Necrons, 10 into Custodes, so loss a draw, 18 into Death Guard, 15 into Demons, and a 17 into Blood Angels. Taking a look at Daniel Latham, going 5-0, another name that I haven't seen play guard before. We have Keating Command Squad, Commissar with Abhuman Detail, Gaunt's Ghost, a Scion Command Squad, an Ogren Bodyguard, going to be attached to just a Keating Command Squad and nothing else, 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, 10 Cadians, 2 units of 10 Catachan, 5 Rough Riders, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, a unit of Catachan Mortars, 2 units of 5 Death Riders, a unit of Krieg Engineers, a unit of Krieg Flamers, not a unit you see quite as often, and a unit of 5 Scions. Not a whole lot of new stuff to say about this one in particular. The Krieg Flamers are an interesting piece, especially because there's no transports in this list. There's no Khazarkin in this list. It kind of serves as a way to be annoying to a lot of Marines. It's kind of like a budget Khazarkin in some ways. It's just slow, which is why I'm not as thrilled about it, but there's probably some cool tech that you can do specifically if you can set up your Krieg Flamers to shoot, Overwatch, shoot on death, which could be a lot of fun. Getting a 17 into Demons, 14 in the Guard Mirror, 18 into Custodes, 14 into Necrons, and an 11 into Dark Angels for 5-0. Next, we're going to go to Kieran Heyman. Has shown up a couple of times so far in the videos with I believe it's the British Armed Services, but a Cadian Command Squad, Commissar with Abhuman Detail, Gaunt's Ghost, Lord Solar, Scion Command Squad, Sly Marbo, let's go Sly, 10 Cadians, 2 Toroxes, 2 into 6 Bullgryn, 3 into Khazarkin, 5 Scions, and then 2 Rogaldorn Battle Tanks. I'm generally, again, not overly fond of the Lord Solar and Bullgryn lists. generally because you have to do one of two things. You either have to put the Cadian Command Squad Lord Solar together, um, or like you either have to be like running Lord Solar around by himself, which does mean that you are a little bit more vulnerable to getting like deep striked and Lord Solar getting killed, so you have to be a little bit better that way, or you're going to be attaching the Commissar to the Bullgryn, and if the Commissar gets precisioned out because he's not that hard to kill, you do very quickly get into a position where you are going to be losing a lot of your efficiency on the Bullgryn relatively quickly. So your opponent can trade like a relatively cheap character, go in, kill the Commissar, can kill the character, but then afterwards the Bullgryn are like, wham, they lose half of their damage output if you don't have the Commissar ordering them. And they lose like 80% of their damage output against things on objectives. So it's a really, really big deal to lose the Commissar. So you're either risking Lord Solar or you're risking the Commissar. Or you're taking two Cadian Command Squads and you're very quickly running into like, this is a lot of tail to tooth, right? You don't have as much firepower because you're spending a lot more on the Cadian Command Squads and the support system. Anyway, Kieran gets a 0 into Demons for beating Raven Guard 20-0, Death Guard 11-9, and then two 12-8s into Chaos Knights, getting a 4-1 overall. All right, next we're going to go over to the Miniature Market GT with a third place performance from Chris Schmidt, 1614.9, going 4-1. He has a Commissar with Adpim Detail, two Rogal Dorn Commanders, a unit of Cadians, two units of Catachan, two Chimeras, two units of 5 Rough Riders, two units of 6 Bullgryn, a Cyclops, two Leman Russ Demolishers, and then two Scout Sentinels. I think this is a pretty interesting list overall. In particular, the two Leman Russ Demolishers, I'm really curious what the thought process is on those. I think that this same list probably could have traded the two Demolishers for Vanquishers, and then you can upgrade your Catachan to Kazarkin or something to that effect, because what is it? It's 45 points each. So yeah, it actually works out pretty nicely. But it's a really interesting thing, so I'm kind of curious what the Leman Russ Demolishers are doing here. I've never really been a fan of them since the nerf moving into the Codex. Some people have liked them in Hammer of the Emperor. They are a little bit more consistent, but still losing the 2 shots on the main gun has hurt quite a bit. They're also just a little bit short range, so you do have to just like run them in at your opponent. So it is a bit of an interesting change overall. Anyway, Chris going 4-1, beating Eldar, Tau, Necrons, losing to Blood Angels, and then beating Emperor's Children. Bit surprised again with the loss here to Blood Angels. The 12 Bullgryn and the 2 Leman Russ Demolishers feel like they are very, very well equipped to deal with that. But this is also one of those spots where the Demolishers can shoot into their own combat, but the Kazarkin are also really good at killing a lot of the Marines. So maybe that's something that could have changed that a little bit, which would have been nice overall. Anyway, well done to Chris Schmidt, 4-1, and third place at Miniature Market. Moving over to, I believe this is in Mexico, El Rey en el Norte, the second King in the North. We have Enrique Ibarra, a player that I have seen their name pop up, but this is their first time that they've actually shown up doing well at an event, winning their first... Oh, hold on. I think I have these names backwards. I do remember the lists were like identical, but I think I have these names backwards. Or I think I have the results backwards. I'll double check it. Sorry, gamers, you guys get to watch me look at things live. Pull up the spreadsheet because I closed it. Enrique, where are you? Yeah, so I have the results backwards, which doesn't change that much. That we'll put that back up. Cool. But the lists were basically the same. I think they were actually identical. So it's a Cadian Command Squad, Commissar with IP Detail, 2 Rogal Dorn Commanders, unit of 10 Cadians, unit of 10 Catachan, 2 Chimeras, unit of 10 Rough Riders, 3 units of 6 Bullgryn, so 18 Bullgryn altogether, 2 units of Kazarkin, and then 10 Krieg Engineers. And then the results, we're getting an Win into Sisters, a big win in the Guard Mirror, losing a really low-scoring game into Jukari before beating Guard, and then a 197 win into Black Templars. Um, yeah, something a little funky is going on here. I don't know if it's like all like I don't think I've ever seen 197. Like both players scoring that high is kind of crazy. So I'm kind of curious. Like maybe it's like a Terraform game or something. And the 30 to 36, if it's like hidden supplies or supply drop, maybe. But definitely some odd scores coming through here. But still, well done to Enrique. Uh, the other player who played at this event was Xavier Barrera, a regular top player in the area, playing the exact same list, as far as I can tell, between these two players. And it was Xavier, got a 78-40 into World Eaters, a big win into Black Templars, a decent win into Necrons, a decent win into Ultramarines, and then I think just dropped round 5 because they were entered as a 0 to 90 against CSM. And you can't get 0 unless you're like not battle ready. So I don't know if this was a disqualification or a drop or like personal emergency or what exactly happened. But Xavier is definitely a player who you generally see have a lot of success Anyway, so congratulations to Enrique on the 3rd place at El Rey and El Norte, King in the North. And let's go right on back to the Winter ITT. All right, gamers, this is where we're going to start the crash out, and it's hopefully going to be fun. I'm about to show you like 5 lists that are nearly identical to the point where I was like freaking out, looking at the list, trying to figure out like what the actual differences are. First one, Sam Dickinson, another name that I have not seen play guard historically. Cadian Command Squad, Commissar at Human Detail, Silent Command Squad, 2 Dorn Commanders, 10 Cadians, 2 units of 10 Catachan, 3 Chimeras, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, 3 Kazarkin, 5 Scions. Okay? Big win into Imperial Knights GSC, big loss into Sisters, big win into World Leaders, medium win into Dark Angels. All right. Good stuff. We've talked about this archetype before. Okay? We're going to take a look at this list by Matt Vince, and you can see the difference between these two lists. Sam Dickinson had a Chimera. Matt Vince had a Taurox and spent 10 points on Loudhailer on the Silent Command Squad. Woohoo! Then it's small win into Votan, small win into Votan. Lost the Guard Mirror pretty hard. Big win into Death Guard and a small win into CSM. So the exact same list, except one enhancement and a Taurox versus a Chimera. Next, we have Guillaume Du Sassois? Something like that. I'm doing my best. Alright, very, very similar list here, and we'll show it. So, here, same thing, no Loudhailer, but has the same range of stuff. The change here is instead of Loudhailer, instead of 3 units of Kazarkin, that Kazarkin and the Loudhailer became 10 Rough Riders. So this, the same. You pick like your last 100 points. You're like, what do I want to do? Do I want a Kazarkin? Do I want a Rough Riders? Do I want a Taurox? Anyway, so I'm not going to focus too much on that. We're going to go to another set of lists that are nearly identical. We have Reese Darville, player that I was a Knights player but has been playing guard for this data slate. Cadian Command Squad, Commissar, Abhuman Detail, Rogaldorn Commander, 10 Cadians, 20 Catachan. As you can see, the last 1, 2, 3, 4 players, 5, 6 players, same thing. 3 Tauroxes, 2 units of Rough Riders, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, Cadian Mortars, again, always take Catachan. There's never a reason to take Cadian Mortars, and then 3 units of Kazarkin. Going 4-1, big win Sisters, small win Necrons, small loss Admech, tie into Grey Knights, and big win Sisters. Okay, next, our next list is almost identical again. We have Andrew Lewis, okay? Now this is a spot the difference here. It's a lot easier when I'm doing it like this as a PowerPoint. But you can kind of see like why I was like, what's happening? These are all exactly the same, because the difference between Reese Darville and Andrew Lewis is one of these guys floated 5 points. I think it's Andrew. Andrew, instead of taking the Cadian Mortars for 65 points, upgraded one of his 5-man Rough Riders into a 10-man Rough Riders. It's the same list. It's crazy. I'm actually shocked that we didn't have like more exactly the same list coming. But anyway, Andrew, big win into T-Suns, small loss into Emperor's Children, which is very surprising to me. It's this list is like, if you were asking me to build a list that was going to be fighting up against Emperor's Children, it would be hard pressed to come up with something better than this one. Uh, Big win into Grey Knights, big win into Chaos Knights, small loss into Eldar. Okay, next we have almost again very similar list. Luke Quadling, another player who I've not seen play guard before. Cadian Command Squad, Commissar with IP Detail, Gaunt's Ghost, Rogaldorn Commander, 10 Cadians, 10 Catachan, 10 Catachan, 3 Chimeras, 5 Rough Riders, 2 into 6 Bullgryn, 3 into Kazarkin, and then a Rogaldorn Battle Tank. So saving the 25 points on the Rogaldorn Battle Tank as opposed to the Rogaldorn Commander. I swear I saw this like exact list earlier. Very similar. All right, maybe not exactly, but you know, it's the same thing, guys. Like if you want a good guard list, especially on the UKTC or WTC, you do this. It's Cadian Command Squad, Commissar, Abhuman Detail, 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, 10 Cadians, 10 Catachan, 10 Catachan, 3 Transports, 12 Bullgryn, 3 Kazarkin, and then your choice of like if you want like Rough Riders or Engineers or something, right? You're gonna get a good list. It's so good. People are doing so well with it. Did anybody go? A lot of people like had kind of middling results. But like if you just want a list that's going to win you more games than you lose, like this is going to do it. You're going to make a lot of Marine players sad. You're going to make Actually, no, you're going to be just really good into Marines in general. It's like okay into Necrons. You don't really have the same kind of OC to like play around them, and the Bullgryn are like not great in the matchup because like Nightbringer kills them in like 2 fight phases. Yeah. Anyway. All right, that's the worst part. We're going to get through the rest of this. We're almost there, gamers. Next, we have column A. You know, if you guys seen like the Japanese girl with the like red, white, mix them together, what do you get? Pink. That's this section. I could do it in Japanese, but I don't think anybody wants to hear me do that. Dom Maidlow, coming through, has played a lot of guard in the past, was on Chaos Space Marines for a large part of the edition, is now back to guard. 2 Cadian Command Squads, Commissar with Abhuman Detail, and an Ogryn Bodyguard. Again, Ogryn Bodyguard just being attached to just a Cadian Command Squad. Unit of 10 Cadians, 2 units of 10 Catachan, 1 Chimera, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, 5 Death Riders, 3 units of Krieg Engineers, and 2 Lebenros Vanquishers. This was also played at the Winter ITT. One of the big things here, I'm expecting that the Chimera is probably going to be 2 units of Krieg Engineers so that you can kind of cycle them through. Then you get that free grenade off every turn. This is probably staged somewhere where you could just go put annoying OC on your opponent's objective every single turn. But you just have all of the real big beefy pieces. The Dorns, the Vanquishers, the Bullgryn, they're all really obnoxious for people to kill, and then you just have enough stuff surrounding it. So Dom Maidlow, 20-0 into Tau, 19-1 into Emperor's Children, 18-2 into Necrons, 7-13 into Admech, and a 15-5 into Emperor's Children. Another player at the Winter ITT, Rowan Hesse. Hesha? I know it's Hessians when we say it in English, or in American English. I think it's Hesse. You know, someone's going to correct me. Again, if you know how to pronounce this, or if Rowan is watching this, I always appreciate the correction of the pronunciation. Anyway, Cadian Command Squad with Laud Haler, Commissar with Abhuman Detail, Gaunt's Ghost, a Rogaldorn Commander, 10 Cadians, 10 Catachan, 10 Rough Riders, 18 Bullgryn, all the big men, Kazarkin, 2 Lebenros Vanquishers, and a Rogaldorn Battle Tank. So very similar overall. Dom has a lot more just like trash. You have the 3 units of Engineers, Death Riders, some more Catachan, whereas this version takes an extra unit of Bullgryn and less trash. This is more of a, I'm going to run at you with the Bullgryn, I'm going to do a lot of damage, can you deal with all of my tank? And the answer for a lot of people is no. They got a 13-7 into Custodes, 16-4 into Tau, 20 into CSM, 11 into CSM, and a 4 into Necrons. Next, another player at the Winter ITT, Bjorn Eriksson, I believe is Swedish, but definitely plays for Vejle. So there's a lot of the members of, again, I think it was Team Sweden who have done very well at the WTC historically. Bjorn has played guard in the past, but this time coming around, going to be a Canadian Command Squad, Commissar with Abhuman Detail, 2 Silent Command Squads, an Ogren Bodyguard, again just attached to the Canadian Command Squad, 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, Slime Marbo. So I definitely know that there are some maps on the UKTC where the objectives are just kind of in the open, so having a lone op can be really nice. 10 Cadians, a Torox, 2 units of 5 Rough Riders, only 1 unit of 6 Bullgryn, Kazarkin, 2 units of 5 Scions, and then 2 Lemur's Vanquishers. Now, I'm told that Bjorn did not like the Vanquishers, found them not very useful on UKTC. So just something to think in mind. But going, uh, I forgot to update his record. He played 6 games, so whatever this is not correct. Let's go give you guys the accurate information. Bjorn. I have so many spreadsheets. Okay. Bjorn got an 11 into Necrons, a 12 into Necrons, and then a 20 into Orcs, a 20 into Custodes, a 20 into Space Wolves, and a 16 into Custodes. So really good stuff overall coming out from Bjorn. Team, what did they go by? Was it I think it was Vejle. Team Vejle ended up winning the whole thing, going 6-0. I believe it was beating Sigil in the 6th round. So that's Gustavo's team. We'll talk about him in a minute. Overall, really good stuff. And let's go into our next one. We're going to be going over to Spain at the Open Talavera. Roger Boira, again, a regular player who appears in these kind of videos, getting first place despite having a loss. So I'm not sure exactly how their pairings worked. It looks like they had more rounds than they needed to actually determine a winner, and so won on some tiebreakers at some point. Cadian Command Squad, Commissar with Abhuman Detail, Gonskos, Lord Solar, 10 Cadians, Torox, an artillery with a heavy mortar. 1 unit of 10 Rough Riders, 1 unit of 5 Rough Riders, 6 Bullgryn. So I like this a little bit better than when you have multiple units of Bullgryn, because you can just attach the Commissar directly to the Bullgryn, and it's not as important for him to like have that radio to order the second unit of Bullgryn. You can still get precisioned out, but it's not as bad because you're only spending 200 points on Bullgryn instead of 400 points in the second unit. Kazarkin, probably going in the Torox, 1 Basilisk, 2 Lemur's Vanquishers, and 2 Rogaldorn Battle Tanks. So I'm not sure what terrain they generally play on in Spain, but this is an artillery with the heavy mortar, which I believe is like the 822 or something, and then the Basilisk for the slow effect that you have, but also just the 822 on the main gun. I am pulling up the artillery datasheet to make sure. Artillery team, ranged weapons, heavy mortar, d6 plus 3 shots at 812, heavy blast, indirect fire. So it is a lot of like strength 8. It's like not bad at shooting at Marines. It's not bad at shooting at Drukhari. So, just like okay overall. The Basilisk I like more as a tech piece if you're going to be bringing any indirect, because you have the option to be like, I don't really care that this isn't going to do any damage. I'm going to point at that thing, and it's going to be -2 to move and -2 to charge, which can be really annoying for a lot of Marines in particular. Anyway, winning into CSM, beating Necrons, beating Raven Guard, winning a Guard Mirror, losing to Ultramarines before beating White Scars and Ultramarines again in the 7th round. Overall, getting first, so congratulations to Roger Boira. I'm sure we'll see you again. Same event, we have... I remember I wasn't sure how to pronounce this guy's name last time. I'm still not sure how to pronounce it, but I'm going to go with Caholin. Caholin Waif? I'm not sure. Nobody told me, so... Anyway, getting a 4-1 yet again, with a pretty similar list overall. Cadian Command Squad, Commissar with Abhuman Detail, Gonskos, 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, 10 Cadians, 10 Catachan, Chimera, Torox, 5 Rough Riders, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, 2 Field Ordnance Batteries, Kazarkin, and a Lemonros Vanquisher. So, again, kind of doing all the same things. The indirect here is kind of interesting. The Bullgryn are like good enough to create that screen where you're not really worried about getting run down by melee armies, but it does make you a little bit more vulnerable into getting run down by shooting armies. like Tau are fairly decent just running at you if they see that you have the field awareness batteries, but you still just have like enough damage. So it's hard to just like run at you and you can kind of ping them away. The downside, of course, is you need to get a little bit lucky with your field awareness batteries to actually kill stuff. Because you don't have just like the raw number of things to go stand on objectives and deny your opponent primary that way. So it's a less consistent game plan overall. Kaolin got a win into Space Wolves. Eldar lost a close game into Guard before beating Blood Angels and Tau for a 4-1. Next, we have Miguel Moreno at the same event, getting Command Squad Commissar at Puma Detail, a second Commissar, Rogodorn Commander, 10 Cadians, 10 Catachan, Torox, 10 Rough Riders, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, 1 Field Arms Battery, 2 units of Kazarkan, presumably in the Toroxes, 1 Luminous Vanquisher, 1 Rogodorn Battle Tank, and 1 Scout Sentinel. So pretty similar overall to what we've been seeing from, Roger and Kaholin. Is what Miguel ended up playing. So getting a 4-1 here, beating Eldar, losing into Emperor's Children. Again, I'm very surprised whenever I see a list like this losing to Emperor's Children, because the Bullgryn are just so good in the matchup that I kind of go, huh. Anyway, losing to Emperor's Children, beating CSM, beating Eldar, and beating CSM again. Okay, one more in this archetype before we can move on to another one. We have Gavin Heritage, who was at Brewhammer Teams, recently had a good showing at, I believe it was another singles event, but as a Cadian Command Squad with Laud Haler. Whenever you see Laud Haler, just remember it's just like filler. You don't take it because it's good. You just take it because like, I have 10 points and now I'm at a 2,000 point list. Commissar with Ad Puma Detail, Gunskos, Lord Solar, 1 Rogothorn Commander, 10 Cadians, 2 Chimeras, 10 Rough Riders, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, 2 units of Kazarkan, a Lemur's Vanquisher, and a Rogothorn Battle Tank. Kind of going back to the conversation before on why I don't love the Lord Solar and the Bullgryn is just because you tend to just like run out of stuff. It's just like a lot of points being spent on stuff that's not really playing the game. Here, I'm assuming that you're generally going to be either running Lord Solar around by, like, probably running Lord Solar around by himself, or running the Commissar with the Bullgryn, which does, again, make you vulnerable to getting precisioned out, or just, like, losing it to Deep Strike, or just, like, Fast Gun. And I would not be surprised looking at the fact that they got a loss into T-Suns, who are generally pretty good at killing Bullgryn, at killing our tanks, at getting to like Lord Solar and killing all this kind of stuff. It's a lot of speed coming out from a lot of T-Suns lists these days where you can actually like point and click at things and just kill them. Beating Guard pretty heavily, losing to Necrons before beating Blood Angels and Custodes. So anyway, that's that. We've had a lot of Dorns, we've had a lot of Bullgryn, we've had a lot of Vanquishers. Let's start getting into stuff that's a little bit different. Next, we're going to be talking about Doombolt Guard. This is the style of Guard that I've been really vibing with recently. We've had a couple of small variations on it, but it generally is going to start off with you have 3 units of Kazarkan, 2 or 3 units of Engineers. They're going to run around, do a lot of mortal wounds to things, and you're going to back it up with either a Castellan Brick or a couple of Dorns or some units of Scions in some combination, and it just does a lot of damage. It plays the midboard incredibly well. You're very flexible on the board in general, and you use those Krieg Engineers who do a disproportionate amount of mortal wounds between the free grenade and the remote mine that they throw up, and then you have the Kazarkan to clean up like the small things like the JPI or whatever that come to deal with the Engineers, and then you have the Scions and the Dorns and the Castellan Bricks to kill anything bigger than that. So it's a very much like, here's just waves of dudes. Can you deal with it? And the answer is a lot of armies cannot. So the first one we're going to be taking a look at is at the Winter ITT. It is Scott McCutcheon. 2 Cadian Castellans, 3 Cadian Command Squads, 2 Scion Command Squads, 1 with Laud Haler to fill 10 points. Nork Deadog, 2 Ogren Bodyguards. So you're going to be going Cadian Castellan with 20 Cadians, Cadian Castellan with 20 Cadians, Cadian Command Squad with just an Ogren Bodyguard, and then Nork and Ogren Bodyguard going to be each with a Castellan. 1 Rogothorn Commander. So this is a choice that we saw Gustavo really pushing, and I know Scott and Gustavo tend to talk quite a bit. But the Cadian Castellan brick is 55 for the Castellan, 65 for the Cadian Command Squad, and 120 for the Cadians. So that's 120 plus 55 is 175 plus 65, 180, 240, and then an Ogren Bodyguard is 280. So you can pretty cleanly a lot of the time go from a Rogaldorn commander to like this Castellan brick. And I know on UKTC there are some players who don't like the second Dorn, Gustavo chief among them, because you can't move them around very well. There's a lot of gaps that the Dorn just doesn't fit into. And so having this as a more flexible piece, but doesn't have the same kind of like ranged firepower or like long range firepower that the Rogaldorn does, is a trade off that you can consider doing. Um, 20 Cadians, 20 Cadians, 1 unit of 10 Krieg, 2 Chimeras, 3 units of Kazarkin, 1 unit of 10 Krieg Engineers, 1 unit of 5 Krieg Engineers, and then 2 units of 5 Scions. Let's see, Krieg Engineers, you get up to 45. You could consider in this list, if you wanted to, downgrading Nork to an Ogre Bodyguard, dropping Laud Hailer, and turning the 10 Krieg Engineers into a total of 3 units of 5 Krieg Engineers. But overall, if you like Nork is cool. Scott McCutcheon went 5-0 at ITT, getting an 18 into Blood Angels, 14 into Guard, 20 into Eldar, 15 into Deathwatch, and a 20 into Votann. A lot of big wins coming out here for Scott. Speaking of big wins, we're going to be looking at Mr. Big Win himself, Gustavo de Sousa. He went 6-0 individually, getting, I believe, a second place overall with Team Sigil, losing to Vezla in the finals. And Gustavo only running 1 Cadian Castellan brick. So Cadian Castellan, Cadian Command Squad, 3 Scion Command Squads, Nork Deadog, Rogaldorn Commander, 20 Cadians, 3 units of 10 Krieg. This is why he calls this medic maxing. Chimera, 3 Chimeras, 3 Kazarkin, 3 units of 5 Krieg Engineers, and 3 units of 5 Scions. So this has 6, 7 meta packs. So you have 3 Krieg, you have the 3 Scion Command Squads, and you have the Cadian Command Squad, which all are going to be resing D3. So his big claim as to why he's running Krieg instead of Catachan, like a lot of people, is one, he already has a lot of scout. 3 units of Kazarkin, 3 units of 5 Krieg Engineers, who are all going to be scouting, some of them in Chimera, so you have a lot of early pressure anyway. You don't need the Catachan to also be scouting, because you just kind of run out of space for them. And the Krieg, his claim is, my opponent is very likely to fail to kill something at some point, so having that D3 and the ability to scan people on primary every now and then, the ability to like stand on an objective that my opponent didn't think I was going to be able to, is very valuable. And that's why he's switching from the Catachan to the Krieg. The Scion Command Squad with the 5 Scions, he started sometimes on the board. You can watch one of these games on the UKTC channel. But otherwise, again, waves of elite infantry in ways that your opponent can't really deal with. I think this probably works pretty well on WTC and UKTC. I'm not quite as sure how well it'll work on like open GW boards for those kind of teams, but if you're playing on like a bunch of GW1, it should be okay. If you're playing on things that are not like layouts 2, 4, or 6, you should generally be okay. But yeah, anyway, big win into CSM, Blood Angels, Custodes again, a small win into Demons, and a big win into Tau. So really good stuff overall from Gustavo. His team got second, and I believe he was second highest scoring player at the event. Okay, going over to an singles event, we have John Winter Russell, one of the best guard players in Canada, going 4-1. I wasn't sure if I should put this under Doombolt, but I think it's close enough. The idea is still very similar. You have a Cadian Command Squad, Gunst Ghost, 2 Silent Command Squads, a Rogaldorn Commander, Ursula Creed, 10 Cadians, a Chimera, and 2 Toroxes, 2 units of 10 Rough Riders, 3 units of Kazarkin, 2 units of 5 Krieg Engineers, 2 units of 5 Scions, and a Luminor's Executioner. It's only got the 2 units of Engineers instead of the 3, because he's trading some of them for these Rough Riders, which is, again, one of the Canadian favorite units. They just all want to be Mounties all the time, I suppose. But either way, still very similar stuff. I know this was played on WTC, and John loves his horses, so makes a lot of sense there. The Luminor's Executioner is probably the one piece in here that I go, huh, that's interesting. And I think the big reason for this, as I know John has played like a Luminor's Battle Tank a lot in the past, and there has to be some value that he's finding by saving some points on the Luminor's Executioner as opposed to taking the Battle Tank, which he's often taken in the past, to take the Toroxes instead. Or maybe he's using like a lot of mortal wounds. He's finding, suddenly the Executioner +1 to hit is kicking off, because you could definitely consider like taking the Luminor's Executioner, turning it into a Battle Tank, and turning your like extra Chimera into like a Taurox, or you could try and find some other ways to shave a couple of points here and there. Like maybe the Ursa Creed could be a Castlin if you were to shave some points. Anyway, John beat Grey Knights, CSM, Blood Angels, Drukhari, and then lost in round 5 against Purge the Foe Necrons. So, of course, this kind of army, this kind of Doombolt, does not do anywhere near as well on Purge the Foe, just because you rely so much on having a bunch of cheap idiots, a bunch of cheap goobers to go be annoying to your opponent. But when those cheap goobers are giving your opponent kill more and very easy kills, it's a lot harder to make this archetype work. All right, next we have things that didn't really belong in any of the other categories. There might be an argument that I should have made a tank pile category, but these are just different lists that we didn't see before. Firstly, we have Timothy Awe. He played on one of my buddies' teams over in Asia teams, and I know he's an Eldar player primarily who shifted over to Grizzled Company for this event. He is playing a Cadian Command Squad, Commissar with Add Human Detail, Gaunt's Ghost, 2 Scion Command Squads, 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, Unit 6 Bullgryn, 5 Death Riders, Kazarkin, 10 Scions, 5 Scions, a Hellhound, a Rogaldorn Battle Tank, and 2 Scout Sentinels. So this is a very different take on Guard overall. So a couple things to note here. One, there's no Cadians in this list. It's the Cadian Command Squad. So the Commissar is going to be attaching to the Bullgryn. And the Cadian Command Squad, something that you can consider doing in your games if you are like in a team's environment or you're playing in a local meta that doesn't have any indirect. The Cadian Command Squad can just like stand on your home. It's going to be giving out orders, and it's something that you can target for snap to it in order to get access to orders instead of taking 10 Cadians to go stand on your home. Something that you can do, you don't have to do. It is a decision that you can choose to make. So that's the first thing to notice. Other big thing to notice here is it's a 15 Scions and a 10 Scions. So you have a lot of tools to kill marine bodies very, very effectively. The 15 Scions will overkill just about any marine type thing that you're going to be pointing them at, and they're still going to do reasonable damage to everything else in the game. The Hellhound, relatively cheap vehicle that you can go out and be very annoying. It kind of serves a similar role to the Bullgryn, where it's just obnoxious for your opponent to kill, and it does give you that ignores cover, that second thing of ignores cover, so your Rogaldorns will be doing a bit more damage. And then 2 Scout Sentinels. You don't need the Scout Sentinels, but they are a relatively cheap way to get things to run around relatively quickly. This, to me, it's a army that definitely wants to be playing like slightly more open boards. You don't necessarily want to be playing this on 1 or layout 1, depending on your terrain, because in like the northwest corner, if you like look at a map, that gap over there is 5 inches, and so if the terrain is like up against the edge of the footprint, you might not be able to fit a Rogaldorn, because a Rogaldorn is slightly more than 5 inches, so it depends on what that wall looks like. But on like 2 or 4 or 6, or if you end up playing on like 3 or 5, or even some of the other ones on like non-recommended terrain plus mission combos, it ends up being very, very powerful. So you do have a lot of shoot, you do have a lot of ability to play off the board. There is like a minor worry about getting trapped by Infiltrate Jail, but in a team's environment, you don't care about that as much. Getting a big win into Drukhari, big win into Admech, medium win into Tau, tie into Admech, and then a big win into Blood Angels. So well done to Timothy, and hopefully you've been enjoying your stay over there. He's not 1579. Hold on. I guess you guys don't care that much. That's something that I care about, because that means I made a mistake. Who does the quality assurance anyway? Anyway, going back to the Winter ITT, we got Simon Evans. And this one didn't quite make it into the other one because it only has 1 Dorn. Yeah, but otherwise it's a lot of the same stuff. Cadian Command Squad, Commissar, Add Human Detail, Gaunt's Ghost, 1 Rogaldorn Commander, 10 Cadians, 2 Chimeras, 2 units of 10 Rough Riders, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, 2 Kazarkin, 2 units of 5 Krieg Engineers, 2 Leibniz Vanquishers. This is kind of like the love child of all of the other lists we've shown you. Is it Doombolt? It's got Doombolt elements. Is it Dorns and Bullgryn? It's got parts of that. Is it Dorns and Vanquishers? It's got parts of that, right? It's just like everything trying to be kind of average altogether. Um, Getting a 13 into Eldar, 8 into Blood Angels, 13 into Demons, 8 into Death Guard, 12 into Drukhari. One of the reasons why you tend to see this like really like trapped or like really narrow band is because it just kind of does everything okay, right? That's a big thing. It doesn't really have one playstyle that it does. You're going to have to try and leverage whatever you do better than your opponent, which makes it a little bit more difficult to play. Okay, next we have Justin Besh, a player whose name I have not seen pop up, playing at the Winter War. And this is a tank pile, a classic tank pile. Gaunt's Ghost, 3 Rogolthorn Commanders, 2 Engine Seers, a Luminous Battle Tank, 2 Luminous Exterminators, and 3 Luminous Vanquishers. Tank, 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 tank. The entire like your entire ability to have success on this, especially in Grizzled Company, is one, you need to be on boards where you can move so you don't get crazy parking lotted. And two, do you understand how to play your tanks forward as like skirmishing pieces? This is something that we first really started seeing with Zach Camo, talking about always be charging, using the Luminous Battle Tank as like a skirmishing piece and using your vanquishers to just like charge things all the time. If you can play your exterminators, your vanquishers, and your battle tank forward and know how to do that, you have the firepower. The next question is, of course, can you move on the board? Because it could very quickly get bottled up if you end up hitting anything that can get onto your side of the board before you can move. Anyway, getting a total blowout into Imperial Fists, a win into Tau, losing into Sisters, beating Custodes, and beating Orcs as well. So congratulations to Justin Besh on the 4-1 at the Winter War. Yeah, just play tanks, driving them at people. You got to be more aggressive with this list than a lot of people think you might have to, because you have to make your opponent come out and fight you. Anyway, lastly, we have Jonas Sinclair at I swear there was an LVO here. It was Cadian Command Squad, Gaunt's Ghost, a Luminous Commander with a Quillen Eye, Lord Solar, 10 Cadians, an artillery team with a Siege Cannon, 1 unit of Cadian Mortars, again, always Catachan Mortars, 5 Rattlings, 2 Battle Tanks, 3 Exterminators, a Vanquisher, and 2 Scout Sentinels. So this is making use of the fact, you have the claim here that the Luminous Battle Tank, if it's shooting at things on objectives where it has full rerolls to hit, and it's going to hit 75% of its shots because you're full rerolling, hitting on 4s with a Quillen Eye. So at AP2 on all of your guns, or AP2 on the main gun, and then like AP5 on the Meltas, is going to be good enough damage to carry. Or like it's so good that way, especially when you pair it with like exterminators, that you're going to be doing enough shots at high enough AP. Even if you don't hit all of them, you're going to be forcing a lot of good saves. So it's kind of like imagine you just had like 5 Forge Fiends that had multi-meltas strapped onto them. Like, is that a good list? I don't know. It's good enough, right, to go 4-1. And Jonas Sinclair is always a player who has been enjoying this Luminous Commander. He's still making it work. He's basically the only player in the world who is consistently making it work. But he's also consistently making it work. So well done to Jonah. Again, this is another list that you have to play a lot more aggressively than a lot of people who play these kind of tank piles think. Overall, you do need to drive the Vanquishers at them. You need to just run the Scout Signals at them. You need tools to force your opponent to play on their side of the board, but out in the open so we can shoot them. Getting a win into Necrons, another win into Necrons, winning into World Leaders, winning into Necrons, and then losing into Emperor's Children. Now, I've said a couple of times, losing into Emperor's Children seems kind of tough with a lot of guard lists. However, I can see it on this one, especially if you lose both the Infiltrate and the Go First roll off, because suddenly their infiltrating Marines can like tag 3 things, and then you really struggle to move, and then they can do it again. So as long as your opponent understands how to just play, I'm going to stand on this primary over here, and I'm going to tag you every single turn so that none of your tanks can shoot the things that they want to shoot because they don't have access to fall back and shoot, then you're going to have success with that in the Emperor's Children's side. Anyway, there's a lot of very similar lists, gamers. I saw someone talking about not having really good internal balance, but one of the interesting things about like looking at all of these lists is almost everything in our codex has been played. There's like 10 data sheets that have just not been played, and a lot of them are super heavies. So we have more data sheets seeing play than a lot of armies see like have data sheets, period. So I don't know. I feel like Guard is in a really strong position. We can kind of play whatever we want. Grizzled is really, really good, but like I think a lot of these top players will be having similar success on combined. So we do have options. People are just playing the stuff that is new and is easier to play. It's definitely something easier for people who are not primarily guard players to have success on than to try and make it happen with combined. Anyway, stuff is looking good. Guard is good. I have a Teams event coming up this week, so that should be fun. If you're interested in learning more, as always, as we get towards the end of it, Discord, send me a message on Reddit or Discord. Password remains Rough Riders. I will not respond to comments for the Discord. Um, you can send me an email, I guess. I don't check my email nearly as often as I'm supposed to. Other big thing, if you're interested in coaching, I do have a lot of time available other than this week specifically. But if you're interested in looking for time next week in order to improve at 40K, let me know. That's something I can do for you. Anyway, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We are over an hour at this point. Let's go. There's going to be a lot of ad revenue. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.